Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Realcomm Live. Almost. I want to apologize for those of you who are trying to watch live. Unfortunately, we experienced a problem with our streaming services. So what we're going to do is we're going to record this episode, and as soon as it's done, an email is going to go out to our base, and you'll be able to watch the recording. So we'll get things squared away for next week. But kind of ironic that the first day we're going back live, we're going to record again. So we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, and it's not because we didn't want to go live with Realcomm Live, but we just had so much great content from both Realcomm and IBCon in the summer and CoreTech and Buildings AI in the fall that we did not want you to miss those great conversations. I mean, we had so many great domain experts in the room having great conversations. We turned on the camera and caught those, and that's what you've been watching throughout the fall and early part of January. And for those of you, who don't know about our YouTube channel, please go up there. There are 15 plus years of content on some of the most innovative conversations as it relates to real estate technology. So we wanted to start our first episode of the year talking about the Consumer Electronics Show. And you say, what does that have to do with real estate technology? The answer is a lot. We've been going to both Comdex when it was in existence and CES for 20 years. Our teams would go, we'd disappear into those massive exhibit halls for 2 to 3 days, go back to the hotel rooms, debrief, and then figure out what of those general technologies needed to be integrated into the real estate tech conversation, whether it was 5G, video conferencing, cloud computing. It allowed us, and still allows us, to be ahead of the curve as it relates to emerging trends in the general tech sector that are going to come down into our world pretty darn quick, and even getting faster and faster every day. So what did we, Howard goes to CES. Our team does not go as a whole anymore, but we do have a representative there. But as good as Howard is, we wanted to reach out to somebody who almost makes it his living to follow the consumer electronics industry, attends CES on a regular basis every year, and knows the ins and outs of those aisles and all those vendors, and brings great condensed insight to us and our community. So with that, I'd like to bring Mark on and get this conversation started.
Jim, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am glad to be here in San Jose, where it's been raining. It was raining like hell the last couple of days, but now the sun has come out. So I'm glad to be back,
Yeah, we got our Pineapple Express down here in Southern California. So you may have got the northern tip of it, and we got the southern tip of it.
Yeah, it was bad the last week. I never went through such bad weather over the course of 3 days.
Well, let's blame the weather on our streaming problem,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And as you said, when we figured out what had happened, was you never know. I mean, there are a million moving pieces to this, and the reality is you got to pivot. We're recording, and this information will be out to our community 30 minutes later. So not as good as live, but
the wonder of live streaming, kind of like in the early days of live television.
Yeah, the good news is I don't get as stressed out as I used to. It happens. There's not much you can do about it. Ian will dig into it and figure out, who didn't have the right switch turned on. But nonetheless, we're going to record a great episode and get it out to our community. So I always like to start my conversations with guests with who are you? How did you get into this field, right? Because that's context. It's not like you're in tech for, 3 days or 3 years. You've been at this a while. So give everybody a little understanding about who you are and where you came from. And then we'll, kind of evolve into the CES conversation.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, thank you for letting me appear in your program again. I come out of my pedigree is I come really out of the PC space. I spent 10 years with Compaq in the day, 6 or 7 years with Dell, a bunch of years with different silicon companies like Synaptics, which was my first ingredient company. So I really come from a technology, from an end user standpoint, from PCs to now the silicon solutions that go into products that people use every day. And for the last 5 years, I've had my own company, SmartTech Research, where I really kind of focus on a lot of the big major companies in terms of what they're doing in the electronics space, especially whether it's PCs, mobile phones, IoT devices, services. And it's been fascinating, and I kind of look at the market in kind of an even-keeled way. We'll go into it in a bit in terms of the things that I thought that were the most important trends coming out of CES, because that's always a fascinating show to go to. I mean, you just see things.
Overwhelming, exhausting.
It is. You get back and you go to sleep for 12 hours as soon as as soon as you get back home. But
Yeah.
I've been a consumer technology geek, like I think like yourself, for the better part of my life, and it's something once you get hooked onto, it's hard to get off that drug.
So I totally agree that consumer and technology and in that industry drives a lot of conversations, and there is a correlation with general tech, enterprise technology that runs every business in this country, and in our world of smart technology as it relates to buildings, right? And smart buildings, smart campuses, smart cities, and I think you're going to actually share that there's a lot more of that conversation going on at CES this year. And so, but why CES for you? I mean, there are other shows globally, and there are other, shows that focus on AV and stuff. Why specifically do you go to CES?
Well, CES has always had a reputation for the big guys show up and they make profound announcements about different products and technology that are going to change kind of the world. And I think some of that was reflected, especially in this year's CES, which by the way, I did not. I usually go. Not usually go. I mean, I'm like the Lou Gehrig of CESs. I been to 25 or 26 in a row. I had a family situation that prevented me from going physically, but like we were chatting offline, it was actually kind of comforting in many ways to cover it online because I had the ability to watch multiple keynotes at the same time, something you cannot do when you're physically there. And by the way, I can write and type and do a lot of different things, in real time. And by the way, I paid a bunch of money, and I didn't have to wait on for Ubers to show up. So,
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the benefits of being there is you can feel the emotion, talk to real people, you can see the energy in certain areas. But to your point, multiple keynotes going at the same time, keyboards, news feeds coming in from the various tech newspapers telling you where to look. In these days, I think it would make sense for people to send one person physically and one person digitally, and then let them compare notes at the end to see who missed what. But I mean, these days it is getting easier to dissect these events remotely.
Yeah.
So
but you miss hanging out in the bars, and that's the one thing you miss is that opportunistic thing where you're in a bar or a restaurant and you bump into someone you haven't seen in 10 years and something comes out of it. So I actually look forward to getting back there live and in person, but there's certainly some advantages to being there in person.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Howard was there for a little bit this year and gave us a little report, but that's why we want to reach out to you to get the deep dive. So give me an idea of some of the top trends. I mean, and there were hundreds of them, okay, if not thousands. So bubble up the top 3, 4, 5 trends that you think are really going to be the big conversation for the next 12 months.
Yeah, and if we could pull up that quick slide that I've prepared, I would have to say that at a top level, and this is not going to surprise a lot of people, AI was everywhere. Even the hot dog vendors had AI signs up. I mean, if you're a company, even if you were a legacy established company like some of the big guys like HP or Dell, Qualcomm, if you're not talking about AI, you're just not relevant. Right. And so that was absolutely true. We've talked offline, you, Jim, and I, Jim, about the upsides of AI, which I'm a profound believer that AI is going to be a kind of a transformative capability in our lives, in our businesses. By the way, in the real estate sector and commercial building sector as well. There's some downsides as well, which you and I could have a separate podcast about that. But it was everywhere. The second thing,
just real quick on the AI, was it just the big conversations, the big goals and objectives, the big prognostications, or were you seeing it literally in action, mind-blowing demos? I mean, did any real substantive applications or demos come out of this year's event?
Yeah, there were. And I think it's really two things. It was really one thing where I have an existing product, an existing technology. Now I'm adding AI to it and it's amplifying or really kind of really blowing out, hey, here's what the potential of this legacy technology could do. And then there's brand new transformative things that AI, which we'll talk a little bit in about a second when we get to number 3, that, hey, it's reinventing older categories of capability. So I saw demos, I saw services, I saw a lot of stuff under NDA that I can't share, of course, that was interesting, but AI was everywhere. And I've, in my 25 to 30 years of technology journeys with different companies, I have never seen anything like what AI is doing
Bigger
to certain
than
companies. I believe
bigger than mobile and bigger than the cloud?
bigger than mobile, bigger than the cloud, bigger than the internet.
Wow.
I
Wow.
really think,
Wow.
and then
Wow.
also there's some dangerous stuff that goes along with that. But I think the AI impact. And by the way, Jim, we're just at the beginning of all this.
I get
This
it.
what
Totally
you're
get it.
seeing right now. A lot of these companies are throwing things against the wall to see what will stick. Much of it will not stick.
Right.
But there will be stuff that's so profound and so game changing that when we look back at this 20 years from now, it's kind of like, well, how did we not know that this was not going to transform people's lives and businesses and
Right.
just the way we kind of go through life every day?
So number two, Apple Vision Pro, we would call that AR, VR, XR, been
Yes.
around 10 years ish.
Yeah,
We've had the
well,
goggles at our event. What did you see
well,
this year that got you
well,
excited?
it's funny because Apple, of course, was not formally at CES. They haven't been at CES at least in a formal presence in years. They do, they don't let anybody tell you anything differently. But Apple very much sends a squad of people that goes there just to check out what's going on. But Vision Pro, and what's interesting today happens to be Vision Pro is now arriving in stores. I get my Vision Pro unit probably sitting in front of my door right now, and everyone is trying to make bets right now. Is Apple going to be the first company that mainstreams VR and AR?
Mm.
And I think based on what I've seen, I played with it about 5 months ago, 6 months ago when it first came out. I only had a few minutes with it. Now, of course, I'll be able to spend a lot of dedicated time with. But every company now is trying to figure out this ecosystem that Apple is going to build with Vision Pro, very much like they did with smartphones, very much like they did with iPads. Is that going to make this a mainstream category that a mother from Castaic, California, might be using this casually in their different interactions during the day? And that's what's been missing from AR and VR. AR and VR has been largely kind of games, video games. Not to say that's not important, but there are some industrial applications of AR and VR, which I think is important. But I will,
yeah, and we'll talk about in the second segment when we focus on the real estate industry. We're going to come back to this slide
yes,
and talk a little bit about how all these things impact
yes,
our world of smart
absolutely,
buildings and smart cities and what
absolutely.
have you. All right, number three, the AI PC arrives. How's that different than number
Yeah,
one?
yeah. So most people's experience with AI, even if you're not a technologist like we are, and we're involved in that category, they use an app like ChatGPT, where hey, write me a article for 200 words. I'm sorry. Write me an article for 200 words on this topic, and it spits out a bunch of text, and you're excited that something you had a tool that actually wrote something for you that you can actually use. All of that activity is happening up in the cloud. And now the latency may be only a few seconds, which is amazing. The concept of an AI PC is companies like Intel, Qualcomm, AMD. They're now creating chips with built-in AI capability that resides in your PC.
Wow.
And there may be usage models that if I have that capability, that I can execute and create images, create videos in real-time fashion, that it's very difficult to do that from a cloud standpoint. Now, I'm still waiting for those usage models to appear to make sure that, Jim, when you go out to the store and you buy a PC in 2004 or 2024 or 2025, that you'll actually look for a device that has that.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of, some of that stuff is emerging, but I think it's going to be a thing, And
well, it's another rejiggering of IT architecture, right? We went
yes,
from mainframes to minis to PCs back to mainframes, i.e., the cloud, and now it's going to be edge. There's going to be a combination of technologies that will deliver this crazy new stuff we're seeing.
yes, and of course the advantage, of course, and I'll just end it at this, is that when you have your that AI technology locally residing on your device, whether it's a smartphone, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a PC, many people prefer that because all that stuff now is private. It's when you're doing the stuff up in the cloud, regardless of what you hear, there are security concerns. You may not
Absolutely.
want your competitors. You may not want you want the world knowing, by the way, that I'm writing an article on this and all that action's going on in the cloud. So doing all this stuff locally has profound confidentiality advantages.
Yep.
we'll see if consumers really care.
Privacy still matters. And I know
Yeah.
that's kind of a funny statement given how much it's been opened up, but I do think the day will come back when people are
Yes.
concerned about it. So the last one, 5G, gosh, 3G, 4G, 5G, all we want to do is make sure our cell phones work in buildings. I will tell you for a fact that in some of the biggest, most iconic real estate projects in this country, we still struggle with our cell phones in the parking garages and 10, 15 floors up, right? So what did you hear about 5G?
Well, and we've discussed this before. 5G was announced with so much hoopla and so much enthusiasm that it was going to, completely redo the broadband industry. Hey, by the way, you'll never need, you won't have to use a cable. You won't have to get fiber optic. If you want the best speeds, you can rely on a completely tetherless experience to your home. Not just, and by the way, have that capability with smartphones where you can watch a high definition movie on your smartphone just like that without any latency. And unfortunately, the hoopla really was ahead of all the infrastructure that had to be built out for you to experience that. I mean, if you go to New York City right now, if you have a 5G phone, even if the 5G coverage is actually pretty decent, 5G, the early implementations of 5G doesn't work terribly well if you've got a lot of buildings, frankly.
Right.
If you have, and the line of sight becomes a real problem because you typically don't have line of sight when you're walking around downtown Manhattan. So that now the infrastructure, the capabilities, the different permutations of 5G that can overcome that, where you really don't need direct line of sight, that's happening as we speak. So I really think the potential for realizing that original vision, I think it's going to be a lot more promising this year than it's been when it first got rolled out a couple of years ago.
And we'll go into a little more depth, like I said, after the break, and talk about what we're seeing with CBRS and other subsets of the 5G conversation.
Right.
Let's take a brief break here from one of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to hone in a little bit on all these technologies' impact to our world, buildings. All right, so let's go back and talk a little bit about how these things are going to impact our world, right? You're the general tech consumer electronic expert. We focus on the built environment. So let's start with AI. Some of the things we're seeing, obviously, is and maybe something you didn't see at the Consumer Electronics Show was, using AI to fine tune the HVAC systems inside buildings, so we're not air conditioning buildings that are empty, right?
Yeah.
AI in the security realm, facial recognition, some security privacy concerns there. Certainly in the back end operations of how a real estate organization, where do I buy? What's my most profitable building? Applying all this artificial intelligence and other AI technologies to large tranches of financial data and market data. Anything else that you saw in the maybe even the realm of the smart home world that AI is poking around at?
Oh yeah, I think the opportunity for AI in the smart home is really providing a customized, personalized, immersive experience. Now we've gotten a taste of that with Smart Home 1.0, where I come home, there's a sensor, it knows I walked into the house, turn the air conditioning on, turn on the Frank Sinatra music. The thing that's kind of interesting about AI is that AI has the ability to learn and curate different information. So forgive me for this analogy, but the analogy would be is that over the course of time, if you have the right sensors in your house, whether you have a thing called Wi-Fi sensing, which is devices that it's not cameras, but the ability to use Wi-Fi signals to see what objects are walking around the house. it can adapt and understand your daily routine in a way that you certainly don't want to waste time kind of telling a device, oh, by the way, do this at this part of the time, during this time of day, turn the lights out at this time of day. It understands your routine, So I think that has enormous implications from a security standpoint. Hey, by the way, your kids come home at 3:00 every single day. Maybe there's an exception and knows it's a holiday. So guess what? The kids are not coming home. They're already home. Right. There's also health implications in terms of, especially in a building, a commercial building. I've been in commercial buildings sometimes, probably before the pandemic, where you're the last person in the building. There's nobody there. And if I had a heart attack in the building, they'd find me the following morning. It would be lights out, Mark. Right. Let's talk to Jim about doing a eulogy. Well, guess what? With the right type of technology and AI, understanding, hey, by the way, there's a person that tends to work late at night. It's not a burglar. It's not someone who's doing some mischievous things. That has enormous implications from a cost saving standpoint, from monitoring safety. Health. Yep. So you're seeing a lot of that roll out. So I think the AI implications for the way that will play itself out is going to be pretty big.
So moving on to the AR, VR, XR, we've had goggles on people's heads at our show going on 10 years. Oh, we're going to be doing a maintenance repair. It's too complex. I don't know what I'm doing. I click a button. I bring in an expert. He's seeing what I'm seeing. He's moving fingers around that's showing me what to do remotely. Hasn't really met mainstream. Why maybe with this new Apple announcement is that going to change?
My prediction, and I don't often make predictions, but my prediction, only because I've played with the goggles for 7 minutes, about 6 months ago, and I'm sure the experience has gotten even better. So that's why I'm anxious to play with my unit when I get it. Jim, the experience is so immersive that it's almost disorienting, meaning that there's been AR goggles on the market. There's been stuff from Meta, chiefly for gaming. Not bad, but you could still kind of tell that it was kind of a bit gimmicky. You're talking about this particular device has enough pixels in it that it's like a 5K video in each eye. Completely immersive. You don't see any light, and it's disorienting. It takes your brain about a minute and a half. And the reason why I think this might play out interestingly in the real estate market is that being able to check out a piece of real estate in a real-time way, where you can go from room to room. Yeah, I know there's been Matterport and there's been some other technologies out there that kind of sort of do that, and it's not. It's
not real time. It's an image. It's a recorded image.
Right. Doing this in real time, where you could just walk around in a 360-degree experience, is mind-blowing. And by the way, Apple, I'm not trying to plug Apple because Apple's not the perfect company, but Apple does remarkable things from a product rollout standpoint. The iPhone 15 Pro, which has been out now since September, has the ability to capture spatial video. So one of the things I'm going to do, because you have to have content, right? It's not about, hey, I want to use the Vision Pro to watch a great movie that's been shot in a 3D type of way. That will be a great experience. But I think from a practicality business standpoint, for realtors to be able to shoot video in spatial format and then upload that and be able to access that with Vision Pro is going to be mind-blowing. And as you know, with real estate, it's all about, hey, what was the experience that I got? It was so compelling that I now want to physically visit the property, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial. If it's amateur hour, if it's an amateur hour experience, you're probably not going to take that last leap.
Well, and so I'm going to ask you if, 2-3 weeks after you've had a chance to play around and really get comfortable with it, let's bring you back on. And I don't know if we can simulate or you can show what's in the goggles. Let's figure that out, because we've been following this, like I said, for at least 10 years. It never really caught on. Every year it's at the conference, but if it's real, I'm going to rely on you to tell me it's real. And then we're going to start digging into these real estate applications.
I would love to do that. And the real estate sector, like any good business sector, people, a lot of the noise with the analysts like myself, oh, it's $3,500. People are not, it's too expensive for the average consumer. And you tell me if I'm wrong here. The real estate category, whether it's commercial or whether it's residential, if there is a product out there that will move the needle and shorten the selling cycle and create a better immersive experience, $3,500 is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you have one in the office, initially everybody's not wearing them all day, but you got to have one, and you got to start thinking, do I ask that client to get on a plane, or do I send them a pair of goggles, right? Yeah,
Yes.
and
And then
we've
you
been talking.
and you
Like I
send
said,
it back. Sure. No, I
we,
got
we
it.
yeah, we've been talking about it for 10 years. I'm excited to think maybe it's getting to that tipping point. Last quick topic before I let you go, the 5G. Did they talk about CBRS or in-building networks or the private networks, or was it just consumer 5G at
No,
CES?
they lead with consumer because it's a consumer trade show. But there's also a lot of discussions, especially with the carriers around where they know they have to do that to create a much better experience around 5G. There is now a lot of promising information, rollouts coming along from, as I was telling you about the equipment infrastructure that's rolling out in a much more profound way that will allow people now to take a 5G signal and convert that to wireless connectivity in their home. So there's an opportunity to save money. I don't have to pay a cable company for that
Yep.
experience.
Yep.
So I think there's some ongoing optimism that 5G will start to realize its potential, particularly in the real estate and in the building category. And I just think that, frankly, I think a lot of the industry right now, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, there's still a little bit of skepticism the way that
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff got rolled out. So there's a little
Yep.
bit of show me, I'm from
We're
Missouri.
looking for real solutions.
Yeah.
The in-building wireless is still a major problem within our
Yes.
industry. Yeah.
Right.
One
And then
final,
there's the last concept around smart cities and smart
right.
towns. The ability to have a ubiquitous experience when I leave my home and I go to my downtown, and that there's a Wi-Fi experience that I don't have to keep connecting to different Wi-Fi networks. There's an
Exactly.
e-commerce advantage to that. There's a safety and security advantage to that. So that's now happening in a big way. Calix is a very, very successful communications equipment company that's doing a lot of work in that area, especially from a smart town standpoint because of the markets they serve. And I think that's a trend that we're going to see much more of that in the future.
We'll look into that company because again, we have a 5G in-building wireless pavilion at our conference, and we're just looking for technology and solutions that will help these building owners and operators get cell coverage inside, robust
All right.
coverage inside their building. Because if you don't, your tenants aren't going to want to be there. They're going to stay home. You
Well, and
can't. Yeah.
especially the rental market. You've got people now because the people who are renting apartments, they can't afford a home, especially if you live in California. And if you're going to rent an apartment and spend $2,500 or $3,000 a month, that apartment has to be smart.
Same for an office. Same for a retail location.
An office as well. And by the way, I'm sure you'll tell me this, is that a lot of real estate properties that may be in fabulous locations, but because they don't have that smart capability built into it, it becomes a lot less.
Well, the old adage used to be location, location, location. The new adage is location, communications, location.
Yes,
If
I
you
agree with
don't
that.
have
I agree.
communications along with locations, it's not a modern building. It's just
I
not.
agree.
All right, we are unfortunately out of time. Thank you so much for making time for our audience. Final words, we'll throw up your slide and give us a little bit
Yeah,
of
I
insight.
love talking to you, Jim. We got to do this in the future. If you want to subscribe to my YouTube SmartTech Check podcast, you got some QR codes that make it very convenient. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter, of course, as well. And if I can help companies in any way, please reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for making the time. It's important to us to be able to find domain experts, and in the consumer electronics space, you're our go-to guy. So thank you so much. And I'm sure we're
Thank
going
you.
to be having a couple more of these before the conference.
Have a great weekend.
You too, be well. All right. Gosh, I mean, I've been to those shows for years. It's overwhelming to digest and figure out what's important and what's not, but it's so good to have a guy like Mark on our team. All right. With that, let's bring on Lisa Woods, who's covering for Mr. Berger, and bring us up to speed on this week's news. There she is. How are you, Lisa?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Jim?
Good. Well, I know we went a little bit over, so I'll get out of your way and let you get everybody up to speed on the news, and
Yeah.
I'll be back when you're done.
Okay, sounds good. We've got a lot of news this week, so let's jump right into it. Our lead article this week was written by Realcomm, and it cites the top 15 technology trends impacting the built environment 2021, 2024. Sorry about that. So, Realcomm sends out this survey every year to several hundred commercial and corporate real estate leaders and visionaries, mostly on the end user side, but also to technology providers who serve the industry. And what the survey does is ask for insight on what the year might look like and then trends they see as transformative. The article was based really on the insight gathered from the data and identifies the top 15 things that were top of mind for industry executives, and then how these trends are shaping the built environment in 2024. So, one of the top trends is the critical need for aligning technology strategies with business goals. So, this is starting to be talked about a lot and is also the basis for our conference theme this year. Another is the specific beneficial use cases for AI taking precedence over the more generalized statements of AI capability. And then, just two more that I'll mention: environmental sustainability will be an important element in achieving carbon reduction goals, and cybersecurity will be a top priority in 2024. So, if you want to see the entire list and other insights about 2024, you can find the article at the very top of our newsletter this week. So the next article topping the list comes to us from Globe Street. What are multifamily operators prioritizing in tech this year? So in this article, the single word from these multifamily professionals on their 2024 technology wish list is less. According to Todd Watkins, COO of Railfield Partners, the multifamily industry is overrun with technology, and he stresses the need for a more balanced approach, preferring to prioritize on-site presence and market knowledge over excessive reliance on technology. So Watkins thinks too many people suffer from the fear of being left behind, and that too much of the industry is chasing the shiny new object. Seems like I've heard that saying somewhere before. The article suggests that many in the multifamily industry agree that the continuous influx of the tech solutions has really led to an app and tech exhaustion. So this article covers a lot of insights we've been hearing more and more about lately, so check that one out. And then the last article I'll mention from this week's newsletter was reported by CNN and some disturbing activities by China. So FBI Director Christopher Wray issued a stern warning to the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, emphasizing that Chinese hackers are poised to inflict substantial harm on the U.S. Wray expressed concerns about China's cyber operatives targeting American critical infrastructure, including water treatment plants, electrical systems, and oil pipelines. The hearing focused on China's infiltration of U.S. computer networks, with officials emphasizing the exploitation of fundamental flaws in technology. The FBI and Justice Department are actively countering the Chinese hacking campaign, yet the sheer number of Chinese cyber operatives poses a formidable challenge. So obviously, this is a very important article, so you'll want to read that. Other articles in our newsletter this week: Blackstone is building a $25 billion empire of data centers in Phoenix. One project the size of 60 football fields, and at another site about 30 miles away, a complex is being constructed on over 400 acres. Deloitte debuts an AI platform for sustainability and climate action. And finally, even with troubles, money still flows into PropTech. So if you're interested in the status of PropTech and its future, check that out. As you know, the weekly briefing goes out every Thursday, and it should be at the very top of your inbox. But if not, you can go over to realcomm.com and find all those articles there on our website.
So great job on the trends. If you want 30 years of experience, hundreds of years of experience, and 3 years of intensive research, you want to read that one. I think you may have heard shiny new object from this guy right here, because I've been trying to beat down the shiny new object syndrome for at least 5, maybe even 10 years.
I've heard that phrase just a few times from you.
Just a few times. And that last one, it was chilling. I watched part of the congressional hearing yesterday. I'm going to finish watching it. Just watch Ray's testimony, the head of CISA, the White House, and DOD. This is serious, and it's going to be a major theme at our conference this year.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Lisa, great job as always. Really enjoy having you do the news.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Okay, so before we wrap and talk about next week a little bit, let's hear from our final sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Access, manage, and measure your entire facilities portfolio. FM Systems' all-in-one workplace management platform enable facilities, corporate real estate, security, IT, and HR professionals to maximize the use of their facilities. Manage real estate costs in a smart way. and ensure employees and visitors have healthy, safe, and inspiring workplace experiences. Plan against an ever-shifting, unknown world of work with FM Systems.
So, next week's episode, one of my all-time favorite topics, the concept of bringing low voltage into a building in a meaningful way, lights, different IoT devices. If we were to take this concept seriously and get it implemented into buildings, we could address the global warming issue, the carbon neutrality issue. We can get to net zero buildings much faster. So we are going to bring two of the smartest guys on this topic onto the show, Jim Baldwin and Steve Corcoran. They've got a project up in Seattle, as well as a couple others, that have implemented low voltage technologies into the building, probably more than any other building in the United States, if not the world, with the exception of a couple others. You are going to see firsthand where low voltage works inside of a building. We're going to have photos that show you the different applications. They're going to talk about what worked and what didn't. If you are at all interested in the future of buildings and something that could really impact in a meaningful way, the carbon impact buildings have 44% plus, you are not going to want to miss this episode. So with that, I say goodbye for today. We'll see you next week. And I'm really looking forward to having that discussion on low voltage buildings and the impact on the real estate industry. Thank you and have a great day. Be well.